We're back at the Outliers Writing University studio here at Left Coast Crime 2025. The conference is going so well, and it is great to have Outliers Writing University here with us. Outliers Writing University is the perfect dovetail for any conference because the thing that happens to most of us, it's a lot like going to any 1-day or 3-day seminars. We come out of it all fired up, burned out, fired up, very tired. And then life intrudes, and we have to get back into our lives, and the writing slips away. With Outliers Writing University, it's a year-long experience with 2 classes per month. They have a variety of options, the way that you can enjoy their content. It's taught by best-selling authors who also happen to be amazing teachers, and it is the way to keep the cardiovascular system going for your creativity. OutliersWritingUniversity.com. And it is a pleasure for me to welcome back to my microphones my good friend Terry Shames. We're going to dive into the world of small-town Texas crime with our award-winning guest, best known for her Samuel Craddock series. Terry Shames brings charm, complexity, and dark secrets from rural Texas to life in her gripping mysteries. Inspired by the town where her grandparents lived, her books explore the nuances of small-town justice, compelling characters, and the lingering shadows of the past. Terry, welcome.
Ooh, thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
Lingering shadows of the past.
You know, that's interesting because I just finished a book and my agent came up with a new name for it, and it's called The Spread of Consequences. And I just thought, wow, that is a wonderful name. And it does. It talks about the past, talks about all kinds of things that happen out in the world that have consequences for, everybody.
And that's a question I think I didn't ask you last time. One of the things I love about your books are the titles.
Oh, they're a mess.
Where do they come from?
They're very hard. The first ones, they have a cadence to them, and it got harder and harder to follow that cadence. And the new one is not going to really follow that cadence. It's always been the killing at Cotton Hill, the something on top of, or and it's hard to keep feeding into that. And thank goodness for my agent, Kimberly Cameron, who calls herself the Queen of Titles, and she is. So she's always helped me with this. And in this one, I said, I have no title, not even a working title, and she came up with this.
Is there a risk in changing up because you run into the Robert Ludlum conundrum where they want 3 words or something like that?
I don't think so at this point. This is the 12th book in the series, and I think people see my name and they say, whatever the title is, I know I'm going to go there to this small town and I know what I'm going to get. But that's what I want to talk about today. Where do I go from here? And I have got 12 books out in this series. I started another series that was supposed to be a standalone, and my agent said, oh, no, this is a series, and I really enjoyed writing the second book. But I'm getting this sort of feeling of, where do I go from here? Like with Jarrett Creek, there are only so many people you can kill in a small town. I thought about taking him somewhere. I wrote half a book in a little town in South Texas where he had gone to visit, and I couldn't do it because he's the chief of police. That's where he gets his power and his knowledge and his knowing about the town. So it's really hard to take him somewhere else.
Well, that does work, though. If you think about NBC's Sunday Mystery Movie and McCloud, that was a fish out of water story.
It is, and I could finish up this story. I don't know, but it's more like a larger kind of problem I'm having of where do I go from here? I have just written a standalone and I published it myself, and I really enjoyed doing that. But it's a lot of work to publish a book yourself. There's a self-published person back here, who can tell you that it is a hard thing to do. I don't know whether I want to do that all the time, so I have to think about it. And then I come to Left Coast Crime, and I'm just hearing about all these stories that come just flowing out of people. Like you just interviewed someone who writes vampires. I could never write vampires, but I'm fascinated. I'm thinking, where did that come from? So I'm sort of mining my brain. At the same time, I'm listening to all these people. I'm mining the brains of people and thinking, where did they come up with that? How did they come up with a twist, a new thing on something that is an old story? And I think every writer goes through this, but I'm having my writer's angst at the time.
Well, you've done it for a dozen books. How did you do it through the series so far?
Okay, so the way I did it the last one, which was I sat down and I said, you have a book due. Are you ready for this? In 6 weeks. Start writing, baby. I knew what the first couple of scenes were, but they had nothing to do with the story. I just said, you have to start putting 2,000 words a day down on paper and keep writing and keep writing. And things kept happening, and I kept saying, okay, what's going to happen today? And this happened, and finally, I got to the point after about 60,000 words, I said, I have no idea where this is going. There's a story over here, and there's a story over here, and it's nuts. They have nothing to do with each other. And I thought, no, I guess you could write 2 different stories in this thing. But all of a sudden, about 70,000 words, I went, oh no, I know exactly what happened, and everything came together. But you know what? I really envy people who outline because every time I do this, I don't know if you know who, Katrina McPherson. Sure. She said at some point in her books, because she is a pantser like I am, she said she cries. She walks around the house crying because she says, I'll never be able to figure this out. And I was having such a dark night. I'm tired of doing that. The dark night of the soul. The same thing happened. I have another series that is about an FBI dive agent. She's on the FBI dive team. It's really exciting. I don't know anything about the FBI dive team. I keep having to sort of dredge things up and look and say, what's going to happen here? The second story was more fun than the first one. I loved it. There's a shark in it. I'm just
That's always good for an audience.
This is great. I kept saying, I've got to have something happen here. I said, Terry, you've had a shark swimming around. Something could happen with the shark. And it did.
There is a psychological, body of research that says that you fill your brain with everything and then you go do something else. And for Katrina, it's walking around crying, but you're focused on something else and let your subconscious mind solve the problem. Is that what happens for you, do you think?
It must be, because this happens, I hate to admit this, but it happens most often in the bathtub. I'm still in the bathtub, and all of a sudden I'll say, oh, wait, I know what. I mean, who knows what it is about the bathtub? It's sort of like diving, I guess, being in the water. But still, yeah, there's just something about the writer's mind, and it just fascinates me. It fascinates me because I don't know how it happens. And yet each time, now I'm talking about the writer's angst, where am I going from here? I have no ideas. I have written 3 books and 2 big short stories in the last 6 months. And I said to myself, Terry, give yourself a little break.
Yep.
Yeah, give yourself a break.
What else do you do how can you get anything else done when you're
Nothing. I don't do anything. I cook. That's about it. And I keep saying, okay, something will come to you. It will happen. You will get an idea. But, you face this thing, and then you come to something like Left Coast Crime, and you hear all these stories, and you think, wow, that's great.
So this renews your spirit.
It does. It does. It starts churning things around. You don't want to steal something for somebody, but something triggers a little idea. And just today I was at a panel, and I said, oh, what an interesting comment that was. So I wrote it down, and I thought, somewhere I'll use that. Yeah.
Terry Shames is our guest. TerryShames.com is her website. A prolific writer with a lot of balls in the air.
Not anymore. I just put the.
Is it every?
I landed the last thing. I have a couple of things. My agent called me right back. She read it right away, and she called me, and I said, "Oh no, she hated it. That's why she's calling." I called and said, "You hate it?" She said, "No, I didn't hate it. I liked it. I love it." She said, "I have a couple of little suggestions. They're like little tiny things to put in. It's fine. Wow. Not a problem." So, yeah.
Is that your biggest fear, that people are going to hate your work?
No, I don't really.
What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is that I won't come up with another idea. It's a huge fear. And yet somehow your brain just sort of says, oh, wait a minute, over here something happened. Yeah, just sort of noodle around with that, and see what happens. And the next thing you know, you're saying, well, here's another couple of thousand words, and keep going. And the next thing you know, you're doing it. Yeah.
How has being part of a writer's community like this enhanced your quality of life?
It's everything. It is everything. I don't know about other writers, but I live with my husband who is proud of my work, but he doesn't say, wow, you really are, you're a writer. You're just all that. And my son, he'll say, oh, you wrote another book? Okay. That's it. It's nice, but you get here and people say, oh my God, I had a woman come up. She said, I love your book so much. I just bought all of them for my library, and everyone's so happy. And I think, give me some more strokes. Love the strokes. It's just wonderful. Yeah, it's one. And then to engage with other writers who are struggling with the same things. Publishing industry is so chaotic, and to talk to other people about the chaos and how they're managing, to talk to people about marketing, to talk to people about, feeling, just generally feeling about writing, how they're feeling about the way they're writing in a way, and jealousies and everything. You can just talk to everyone, and it's absolutely soothing. It's wonderful. I go home and I just feel like I've just been on a wonderful vacation. Yeah.
So when you began all of this, you were coming to these conferences because you were looking for anything and everything you could take away. And now the circle is completed and people are coming to you. What does that feel like?
It feels like I'm still wondering about, I'm getting stuff from other people at the same time. And I'm certainly happy to give back. I'm certainly happy to talk about my experience. But then I'll hear somebody say something, and I think that is a new and fresh thought for me about how this all works. So I don't think you ever really get over being a newbie. I was talking to somebody about we would like to see a panel on how to stop making rookie mistakes. And we both agreed that there's no such thing. Yeah. Every single time you start a book, it's a rookie mistake. And I see Doug nodding over here.
Yeah. Who is this person that's writing this thing?
Yeah. So yeah, it feels good to have an established career. I like that, especially since, like most writers, I said, I just want to write a book and get it published. That's all. And then the next one came up and I said, well, that's nice. I have two now. And then all of a sudden it just kept going. So from there to here is amazing. Yeah.
Before we go, I want to dig into a little bit into the indie versus traditional experience for you. Obviously, those of us that do it all ourselves, there's different work. And if you're going to be an independent all the time, you probably hire the people that your publisher hires. Which would you prefer?
I hire Karen Phillips to do my covers like everyone does.
We're going to have to charge her, Doug, because she's getting a lot of free publicity.
She's just great, and she just takes right off with what your idea is. I hired a professional editor to go through it. I did not, however, get a copy editor because I thought, I can do this. But I rushed it, and I embarrassed myself half to death because I slapped it up there, and my dear friend Ann Moose said to me, Terry, you have a lot of mistakes in this. You should probably take it down and go back over it. I'm here to tell you I found 150 errors in that book. I was embarrassed to death. And now I've put it back up, and I feel much better about it, and someone promptly wrote me and showed me enough.
It never ends, does it? It never ends.
So yeah, that's the hard part. I'm with Severn House with my 2 series, and I absolutely love the editors there. They do a tremendous job. They find little things I would never think of. So that's what I have to do when I'm writing a book on my own. When I'm going to publish it myself, I'm going to have to do that. So yeah.
What a treat to spend time with the amazing Terry Shames here at the Outliers Writing University studios at Left Coast Crime. Terry, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.